All right, welcome folks. Mil-Spec Ops Monkey here. This is going to be your sit rep for Wednesday, 6:31 p.m. Central Time, coming to you from the great state of Texas. And it's December 1st. So we have plugged on through another month. Man, this year is flying by. And so without further ado, let me hop on over to our board here. We're going to kick off with Skyglass and look at the numbers. Look like a pretty heavy day. I will tell you the last couple days, the helo activity has just been Richter. It's pretty wild. So we're going to look at this real fast. Looks like what we have on the board right now are just the helos up currently. Those are just H60s. As you can see, heavy congregation up here in the Northeast, and again across the top here, you know, around Chicago and Minnesota, etc. This stuff down here, the Mojo stuff, that's not trainer activity. Some of this may be trainer and the Panhandle, and then we got it running through here in the Southeast, pretty heavy duty. Now, if we combine that, let me get down here to our others. We do have 5 EC45s we add to that mix. And let me find our other helos here. A couple of Chinooks right here across Texas. Got a Shiner running through. Oh, sorry, that's not a H60. H47 right here. There is that one. And then let me just see if we've got any other. We did have a couple gunships. So if I just kind of load the board full of the helicopters, the helo wise, let me see. I don't see the gunships up anymore. Looks like a pretty heavy little populace there in terms of helicopter activity up. I want to say, if we look at the total number, 25 there. So we're probably about 30, I think, in terms of the helos. Now let me back these out real fast. I'm going to unselect these. Then that's going to clear our board. And then the NAs that are up, these are folks that just don't want to be tracked. We still have that little Chinook up here too. I say not tracked. They just don't have call signs. We are obviously tracking them, and then we don't even have the others. Now, if I go over here and add to this and take away, let me pull my list down, and then let's see, do just a quick burn. So the pinks, again, these are the ones that are masked or NA aircraft that don't want to be seen. As you can see, quite a few helos up. We're showing right now about 225 aircraft up across the U.S. This is mainly military. And then we kick it off sideways here. It gives me an opportunity to look at the altitudes, and you can really see which ones are kind of, you know, high flyers buzzing across the U.S. So, but there is that. Now, I've got quite a bit to cover. I kind of blew over on the last one in terms of coverage by about 10 minutes for our sit rep. I'm trying to maintain them at 30 minutes. But at the end of the last one, I kind of felt like I was even confused when it came to the prison stuff. So I'm going to do a little quick rehash. I kind of put some things together just to kind of show you why I was looking at that, what's going on with it, and you know, just the probabilities, you know, when it relates to the SPA just all of a sudden firing up with the aircraft that didn't want to be tracked almost the exact same time that we have this hearing going on. So, or this trial, should I say. So let me back down out of that. This can be our flat map. Let me just show you. I'll hit the H60s again off of this one. Let me hit reset, and not looking at that. Let me get over here. Here we go. That's what I wanted to do. My mouse was giving me a little hard time there, but let's filter by H60s. And you can see it's a pretty good amount. Let me see, 41. So there you have it. We've 41 helos up, just H60s. That's a lot. It's probably counting that right there. So let's say 40, since that one probably is in there. But still, 40 is a pretty high number. The normal number range is about 6 to 8. So when we start seeing spikes like this, you know, this definitely something going on, okay? That is quite a few. And then notice a bunch down here in the Panhandle area. I say Panhandle, sorry, in the corner out here near Biggs Army Airfield, which we'll take a closer look at that here in just a minute, okay? All right, so let's bug over to a flashbang schedule to see what he's got going on. Looks like he put on his pants about 9:30 this morning, and looks like he's finishing the day off lighting a menorah, which is the Hanukkah celebration. It looks like the VP is with him, Bob Marley, and the second gentleman are all together. All right, so that's at 5:30, which is already there. All right. Okay, so let's look at real fast over here on the TFRs. I do want to just take a quick gander at it. It looks like he's headed back to his bunker again this weekend. That's going to be Camp David up in this general area. Pretty confident. Let me just double check that that is indeed what we're looking at here. Yeah, it looks like that is Camp David. So it looks like that's where he's headed for the weekend. And nothing really else. We do have a couple like this one here in South Carolina. This is Fires up here. That looks to be a new one. VIP into Charlotte. That may be Bob Marley, or that could be Flashbang. I'm not really sure. That's a pretty small one. You don't see him. He usually gets the big rings just because he's a big ring kind of guy. Space operations down here. These orange boxes are actually just weather, severe weather or something along those lines. I don't know how to get rid of them. They just popped up one day and I don't have anything filtered to give me that. So we're going to leave it at that, all right? All right, let me back out. Now let's do this. We're going to take a quick gander at the volcanic activity. We did have one right here in Africa that was actually firing this morning with a little bit of ash. We've got 6 running from Central America down to South America. That's kind of been normal as of the late. La Palma, which is a normal spewing ash, and then this one here, Marapai, which is actually a new one. I will tell you, Marapai just popped on. I was looking at it 10 minutes ago, and it was a different one. It wasn't Marapai. So this is the second one that just popped on with an ash alert down in that general area. Okay, don't have anything up here in Russia or Alaska, but who knows? That could change. Give it a day. So there's that. Now let's get over here to Brokeback Brandon and see what we've got going on. It looks like we've got a little less out here off the shore in terms of anchored boats, but it looks like this general area is still chock full. These are boats that are waiting, they're cargo vessels that are anchored, waiting to get into Los Angeles port to be unloaded. And so there is that. All right, so doesn't look like it's getting any better, does it, folks? Okay. All right, let's get over here to Biggs Army Airfield. We're going to take a quick gander at what's going on. Now, I did notice we had one arrival come in today. That's, let's see, Allegiant Air. And then that bad dude rolled out and went to Nashville, Tennessee. So if you're in Nashville, you got a load of poppies today. Now, one of the reasons I was pointing out last week, I just wanted to show, or sorry, the last sit rep, seems like it was a week ago, on Monday, was that when we start to see this subside and we no longer are seeing the flights leaving out and basically rehoming people, we need to pay a very close attention to what's going on with those immigration facilities. Do they stay or do they pack them up and put them away, right? And that's going to really require some crowdsourcing, meaning local boots on the ground that have eyes on to see if the activity has subsided, if they put those things away, or if they remain. Now, if they remain, we need to all be paying very close attention, because that means either A, we got more immigrants coming into town, or B, those bad dudes are going to get repurposed for us. So just pay attention to it, all right? That's all I want to put out there. So, but there's that. Now, you do remember I also was showing you the fact that over the Thanksgiving weekend, they've cleared the board since. All right, well, we'll just not talk about that then. We actually had about 8 flights that rolled through there. Where did they go? Let's see here. Wednesday, that's now to Tuesday. Next 40. Okay, let me drop down a little further and see if they show on the board, and they don't. Wow, okay. Well, that's pretty interesting. If you remember, over Thanksgiving, that's Monday to Tuesday. Let's go to previous. I'm looking for nothing there. All right, we're going to go down a couple screens here, folks, because I think this is pretty telling. Here they are. Okay, I was going to say, man, that is just some giant brass ones, man, to just delete that many flights. But this right here was basically a surge that took place from right before Thanksgiving, actually Friday, all the way through the weekend to Monday. You've got about 9 flights there, 10 flights that were all coming inbound, and then of course they all went to different locations. That looks like a pretty big surge of moving immigrants. Okay. All right, so from a Biggs perspective, if we get over here and we just kind of take a look at the airport, we did see some helo activity in that general area. I'm not seeing it on the map here, which is kind of interesting, which we do see it over here onto this map, or at least we did from a helo perspective. It's just a total whiteout now. See this little bunch down here? Kind of interesting how you can look at two different flight trackers and not get anything. So it looks like they're all still on the runway. That's 5 H-60s that are either getting ready to get into some action. Let me see if we got any kind of, okay, there's one. Looks like he was running, just doing some local routes there around the airport. Something out here, but all right. So yeah, not even on the other one, on the Biggs deal. So, okay. All cool there. Let's jump over here and take a quick look at the Swift Air flights just to see what we've got going on now. This morning, if I get over here to the other board, I just kind of show you what we had. This was this morning's flights. As you notice, we had rolling out of Laredo down to Mexico. We had a Valley flight, which is a border town that rolled down to Guatemala. Then we have another border flight, McAllen, that rolled down to, that's somewhere down south of the border. Into Mexico or somewhere, Honduras, wherever. And then we had a Cincinnati to San Diego. That's probably a big nothing. I don't think there's anything to that one. And then, of course, we have the Havana-Miami flight, which seems to be, tourism must be booming there. I don't know. It definitely seems suspect, okay? All right, and so this evening, you can see we still have, it looks like one flight coming out of Mexico and the other St. Louis to Minneapolis. But the one coming out of Mexico evidently has nowhere it's going. There is no destination. So, okay. All right, let's bounce on over here. Laughlin, now this is an interesting one. This is Laughlin Air Force Base in Del Rio. Not seeing anything. I'm not really actually even seeing helicopters. For a while there, we were looking at a lot of the state troopers that were doing a lot of flights. I'm not really sure what's going on relative to this mother of all caravans that was supposed to take shape. I suspect that they are being held up so that their arrival happens after December 8th, if you know what I'm saying. So if that mandate takes place and they have a big drop off in people, I think they're expecting that to be the time to basically surge the border with folks. Now, I have been reading that there are a lot of, 2,000 group, 4,000 group, 3,000 groups, kind of all staggered. So we'll see what happens. Okay, so there's that. Looks like Del Rio, really not too much going on. Now, Key West was one we spoke about on our last sit rep. That was the day that the trial began, and we had a massive surge of non-fighter type of aircraft. So there wasn't any, Navy P-8s and P-3s and F-18s or anything like that. So it wasn't really anything along that lines. It looked more to be logistics birds. I guess that's what I'm saying. Certainly not calling a P-3 a fighter, but needless to say, if you look, this is kind of our normal day. There's 2 to 3. If you remember back on Monday when we looked at this, we had a sea of, the whole board was full and it kept going. So of aircraft coming inbound. So I don't know what was going on there. But like I said, that's the spot I think, if you were going to have some remote hearings take shape or trials, man, that'd be one of the places, kind of way out there. So, all right, now let's bump over here to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. And I will tell you, there's not much on the board. It is very, very quiet other than the Homeland Security birds that flew in. Now, I just want to point out also, we did have let me just show you, this is C-101. Remember, this is the one that disappeared, that they wiped the board, that never supposedly showed up there. Well, here we have it actually leaving yesterday, and it went to Brunswick, Georgia, which I thought was an interesting location. Don't know what it was doing there, but that's C-101. That's going to be your Director of Homeland Security, okay? And so there is that. And then, of course, C-202, we already talked about this one, how it came in between Thanksgiving and Sunday, spending, I think it was 2 flights, round trips from D.C. down to Guantanamo Bay during that time, which is very unusual. You normally don't see Homeland Security guys. Like I said, that one was a bit of a surprise, okay? Now, Let me bump back over here to our calendar. And just so you guys can see from a Guantanamo Bay perspective, we don't have anything coming up until this Rahim Hussein Muhammad Abdu al-Nashiri, which is a mouthful. But that thing kicks off next week on the 6th. Really nothing on the calendar for them to have all that activity. And I don't know why Homeland Security would have. Normally it's a DOJ, like I said, that's coming in there. And actually it's not even them, it's the Navy that is bringing folks in from Jacksonville. So there's that. All right. Just again, a data point. Let's see. Let me just show you too. Also, I wanted to point this out. This is C-202. And C-202 is actually, it left from Guantanamo Bay, ended up out here in Puerto Rico. And that has been there for a couple of days. It arrived on Monday. It was out on the far end, out near Rincon in Pine Cay. And then it rolled over here into the San Juan area on the other side of the island. Now, I want to point that out because there is a prison there that holds both male and female offenders. It'll hold up to 1,271 total inmates, but that is one of the prisons that they, I think they hold people that are awaiting trial. So anyway, for the most part, that's where they hold them. So that is just a data point. Again, Department of Homeland Security, what are they doing there? I don't know. I guess that's where you'd think they would go, is a prison, right, to look at. So, all right. So, okay. Now, let me just point something out here. I felt like I added a little bit of confusion when we were talking about the numbers and nomenclatures at the end of a prisoner's location, or basically that allocate a prisoner's location. So I want to show you this video. I'm going to talk to it a little bit, and it's going to be about 1 minute, and then we're going to bounce over to Club K's. I'm trying not to go long, but I may go a little over on this one. So this is kind of a Maxwell thing. Now, I just want to show you where they are. Now, this is Claire Bronfman. Remember, she's part of the Nexium deal. Note the number, 053. She's currently in Philadelphia. Then you got Epstein, who was deceased. Note the number, 054, Manhattan. All right, and that's why I was saying Manhattan. I kind of screwed him up there the other day. Now you got Massachusetts, but notice Anthony Weiner was 054, but he was actually being held at the FMC Devons in Ayer, Massachusetts. Then, of course, you got this scumbag, Keith Rainier. He's at 177, was transferred from Brooklyn over to Tucson. And then this guy, who's unknown, just released at 053. All right, and he was, look at the date on that, 2001. But of course, he was held up in Alden, New York. Okay, now remember, 053 is supposedly the same place as Claire Bronfman. And then you got Maxwell, number 509, definitely not MDC Brooklyn. But I just wanted to point that out. I think there was a little bit of confusion when I showed it last time because I was actually talking about Manhattan, and then I talked about Brooklyn. And but the bottom line is these location codes don't really match where they're actually staying. And in some cases, they don't match at all. It seems like they are being hidden for good purpose, obviously, because boy, do they have a story to tell. And so I imagine they are trying to protect them. So will they make it through all the way, and will they be convicted? Now, we know some of them have already been convicted and then released, like Weinstein. But will Miss Maxwell make it through all the way? Will she survive? And if she does, will she be convicted? One hopes so, and that maybe that opens up Pandora's box, but we will see. Okay, now over the past couple years, those who've been following me for a while have heard me talk about the Club K missile system. And so I want to spend about the next 10 minutes just talking about this system, why I think it's pertinent, why I think we have a lot of this activity off the coast, especially the East Coast of the United States, and not the West Coast. All right. Now, this is what I find interesting. If you look, this is that pay to play. You guys probably remember it. It tied in. You had Uranium One. That was a big part of the scandal, tied into the Clinton Foundation and that whole deal, right? And then, of course, we have over here, this is Project Pelican. You probably remember me talking about that. I'll talk more on that here in just a second. That has to do with Gulf Tainer and Cape Canaveral. But this thing goes into Ukraine. It ties in all the way over to BLM, Bundy Ranch, where they were doing land grabs, had to do with uranium. It is very, very intricate, and none of these people, to my knowledge, except for one, is ever been in jail for any of it. You got Burisma, you've got Archer, and you know who, Flashbang's son, and I mean, this whole thing is just one big chocolate mess. Every one of these people should have been convicted, and they're all, for the most part, walking on the street. So this is how the setup is. This is what kind of it all began, all right? Now, if you take this and you talk about, in a little more detail, some of the players. So it starts out, you've got the global initiative under the Clintons, all right? Now, the way they were actually laundering money was that through the Varkey Foundation, it was this whole pay-to-play thing, right? What they would do is there would be a large donation, $70 billion to be exact, that came from the Varkey Foundation, right, through this global initiative thing. Okay, $70 billion was paid into the Clinton Foundation, and of course, that money goes to these other organizations to be basically laundered, right? And that's how they basically, we're gonna pay to your foundation, and then in return you're gonna give us something, okay? And so this Sonny Varkey guy is the founder of the Varkey Group, all right? Now, if you go look at it and you peel the onion back, you've got Dr. Jafar, who is Saddam Hussein's head scientist. He's the guy that ran the nuclear program for Saddam Hussein. He owns, or is part owner through his sons, is Gulf Tainer, okay? Now, I mentioned Gulf Tainer because Gulf Tainer during the Obama administration, sorry, the Kenyans administration, part of this pay-to-play thing, right, was given I guess it was a 35-year lease to run Port Canaveral, Project Pelican, okay? And so Gulf Tainer, a UAE company, is running the operations out of Port Canaveral and up in the Northeast as well, okay? So they've got two ports on the East Coast that they run and control, meaning if they wanted to get something in there without anybody seeing it, they certainly could do so, okay? Now, you take the Gulf Tainer, you look at the family, you've got this guy, Mohammed Al-Qasim, who manages the operations of the Port Canaveral, and then you got Badr, if I'm butchering this name, Jafar, who's the chairman of that. That's his son, okay? And then you've got Hamid Jafar, who is the chairman of the Crescent Petroleum, all right? Just these spin-offs that come from Dr. Jafar. Now, this guy over here, this chairman of Gulf Tainer, is also tied in really tight with Rosa Baron Export, which is they are basically the ones that do the distribution for the Club K missile system. And then, of course, they're also tied in because of that through this Russian weapons developer exporter, which is Club K. That's who manufactures the Club K, okay? And then, of course, you got another Jafar here that runs this Crescent Petroleum, and then this project development company. And so this whole thing kind of stinks to high heaven. But to just point out one thing, that the Pentagon placed Dr. Jafar on CENTCOM's blacklist in 2003 and designated Jafar as a senior Saddam regime official enemy combatant who was wanted for capture and could be legitimately targeted by the U.S. and coalition military forces. That came from James Clapper. That's actually a direct quote, okay? And then shortly after, we actually give him a company, Gulf Tainer, to run, give his company a 35-year lease to run Project Pelican in Port Canaveral. We'll let that sink in, okay? So why is this a big deal? Let's get over here to the missile system, the Club K, all right? So this thing is basically, it is a cruise missile that has pinpoint accuracy down to about 3 meters. And it can carry 4 different types of weapon systems. It can be a nuclear with a 400 to 500 kiloton thermonuclear warhead. It can be biological, chemical, or conventional, which means non-nuclear. This thing has a distance of about 2,800 miles, which back of the napkins, basically coast to coast in the United States from one end to the other, all right? And it actually, let's see, can fly down at about a range of about 100 feet off the ground at supersonic speeds. And then the missile itself is anywhere from about 22 feet to about 29 feet, okay? So kind of think of it as about the size of 2 sedans, you know, side by side, okay? Or sorry, length to length. Now, this is kind of the missile a little bit more in depth. This is for those engineers out there. Guidance system is in the front, warhead is in here, midsection, or forward section, sorry. Then you've got your forward fins, your second stage, and then you've got your first stage. When I say first stage, second stage, I'm talking about the rocket motors, all right? And then back here you've got TVC, which is a thrust vectoring control, which means the thrust actually can rotate to give that thing better radius on its turn. And of course, it's got some rear guidance fins on the back too, okay? So that is the 3M-54 caliber missile, okay? All right, now, let's talk about the delivery system, and this is why this thing is so lethal. It is basically a missile system that is inside a cargo container or a shipping container, okay? It is undetectable. It is inert until it is activated. It can be remotely activated from distance. So if you were to put this, you know, on a train, on a truck, on a cargo ship, you could park it literally on the cargo ship right off your coast, okay? So that is why this thing is so lethal, is because it is hidden. You cannot see it. It looks just like any other normal cargo container on a ship. So here's why it is a threat. Now, if you look at this system, you think about this. If you control a port, you're able to get these in. You could have thousands of these scattered throughout the United States. Typically, with the 11 million cargo containers that enter the United States per year, only 5 to 8% of them are inspected. That's if you're controlling the ports, right? So if you have a foreign entity controlling a port, that's not going to probably be in that same range, right? So they're going to be slipping stuff through as much as they want, everything from drugs, human trafficking, to missile systems. Now, that thing could come through into a port, put on a flatbed truck, and taken anywhere within the country, and now you've got an internal threat, right? And so if they were to launch one of those, just a matter of seconds for that tube to be activated, popped up, and basically launch those 4 missiles out, and you're within minutes of striking, versus a typical nuclear or an inbound ICBM is about 18 minutes prior. You know, this, I'm not talking about hypersonics, that's a little different game there, but a typical ICBM runs about 18 minutes from the time it's launched to the time it comes in, based on distance between our countries, okay? And so, so if you just average, say, 4,000 miles. And I only say that because I lived in Kwajalein for a little while, and I can tell you that you used to launch them 4,000 miles away. They'd come out of Vandenberg Air Force Base, and they would end up in the Kwajalein Lagoon in about 18 minutes, which is 4,000 miles away, okay? So there is that. Now I'm going to bounce back over here because I want to show you this when I talk about ship types, okay? Now, you're talking cargo vessels and nothing really else. Let's just go cargo, all right? We're going to bump this in, and then we're going to look at, actually, as I get into the filters, let me voyage. That's not what I want. Current status, here we go. Now we're going to just talk about boats that are moving as well as, you know, parked, all right? And so, okay, bump that back. Let me get back up here to this. Why is it not letting me go up on my screen? All right, don't care about wind, but it's going to give me wind anyway. All right, so doesn't matter about wind. Let's just take a look. I want to show you our coastline when it comes to a potential threat. Now, these are all straight up cargo containers, all right, cargo boats, should I say, that are around our coast. Let that just kind of take a look at that. Let me turn this wind thing off. This is wearing me out. It is not, I'm being a real kind of a pain here. There we go, off. Okay. All right, so take a look at this. These are all the boats. Now imagine any one of those could have a Club K missile system on them. You would not be able to tell. So when you see these R-135s that are out running over the coastline, let me get back over to Global Exchange real fast, ADSB. When you start looking at these guys that are, let me reset. You know, we keep seeing all this activity. You got P-8s that are out here running. Of course, those are looking like sub-hunters. But when you start getting the B-703s out, running this area, and you start getting the, now that's going to be air refueler, the R-135s running across the water, it makes you kind of wonder, what are they looking for? when that's usually kind of a land-based type system, right? They're basically mapping a battlefield as a spy plane. Now, we've noticed that we've had a increased amount of fighters up and down the East Coast, and it wasn't just due to flashbang being out there, because we got them all the way down here into Florida. My fear is that these fighters are out here because they are worried about that very threat, okay? Maybe why we're also seeing all the helicopter activity internally, you know, looking at different things. Maybe they're looking for containers, maybe they're looking for something else, I don't know, but that is why this is such a lethal system, because they could park it right off your shore and launch it, and it's no different than having a nuclear sub sitting off your shore. Only difference is it's a cargo container ship. Nobody's looking for those. They could pull in when you control the ports in Delaware and the port in Florida. You got it top to bottom, coast, East Coast. You could easily put one of those on the back of a truck and park it right down the street from, say, the Pentagon, and it is a big threat. You're not going to be able to counter against that threat, because once it's launched, the container's inert, nothing left in it, it's empty, right? And so what are you going to do? Blow it up? Wouldn't make any sense to, right? And so, but it takes that threat from 18 minutes down to 4 or 5 minutes, and then you don't really have a counter attack, okay? That's why these things are so lethal. Now, this is why I believe we end up seeing a lot of this stuff going on too, where you get this sniffer that's out looking for biological, chemical, nuclear type of weapons, right? And so you can see all this activity down here in Philly, right? They were buzzing. Look, this is all just for the month of November from here up. That's all Philadelphia. But that's what they do, right? They're basically combing those areas. And the reason they're looking in the waterways is because if you get one of these containers on a barge or anything, and roll it into, you know, down one of these rivers, you can pull right up to the front door of the White House. So that is the Club K missile system. If you want to learn more about it, you can actually go over to my website, monkeywerxus.com, go to blogs, and then just click on the button Club K, and it'll walk you through all the system. You can actually read all of those blogs. They're not a long read, but there is that. So don't know if that is the case, but we are certainly very vulnerable right now. And so we need to keep an eye on that. And when we see all this activity going off the East Coast, I think it certainly makes you kind of wonder. Now, all right, so speaking of that, we look out here on the West Coast. You do have this E6 who's been out here quite a bit lately, rolling in and out of the San Francisco kind of area, maybe that Beale Air Force Base, maybe. I'm not 100% on that, but E6s have been up. We've seen Night Watch. We've actually seen the second Night Watch out here as of recent. And I do know we do have the Omni civilian air refueling company has been running a lot of fighter support out here off of the West Coast as well. Of course, that shows up on our commercial side. Anyway, so there is that. I'm going to back us out of this, and I will be back on Friday with our next sit rep. We'll continue to just keep our eye on what's going on the East Coast, and see what's happening with this immigration stuff. So you guys stay frosty out there. I think this is going to be an interesting closeout of the year, and a heck of a next year, that's for sure. So stay frosty. God bless. Monkey out. Check out the latest gear and products at monkeywerxus.com.